So I made a stockman's smash. So I got the old chat potatoes, steamed them in the oven, and then waited till they get, put them in the coorum, so I had a coorum full of steamed chat potatoes. And then what I used to do is smash them in the ones, and then put a pot of cream on with caramelised onion that I'd do, and salt and pepper in there, and I'd pour it over the top. So smashed chats with cream and onions and potato and salt and pepper in the oven, and it just used to come out like a potato bake, but a stockman's version. This gentleman, he said to me, he knew I was a chef and we used to chat, and he said, all the old Ansett management, when they got made redundant, they all went to the Middle East, and they all run Gulf Air in Bahrain in the Middle East. I'm like, what's Bahrain? What's Middle East? What's Gulf Air? Not knowing anything about the Middle East. And he said, they've got an in-flight chef program. So there's a chef in first class in the Middle East. And I'm like, how do you get into that? When you get requests for off-the-cuff menus, you just put the request in a chat GBT, and it'll give you a full menu. You just send the menu on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done.
It's done.
But that's like step one, of a million steps in AI.
Welcome to Passion to Profession Season 2. I'm your host, Eddie Cofie, and as you know, we're speaking to chefs and food professionals about their journey, what shaped them, what challenged them, and ultimately what led them to change their passion to a profession. In today's episode, we're speaking to Jack Peacock, and boy, do we have some stories here. But without further ado, Jack, let's see, this is going to be quite exciting. For those who don't know you, Jack, who are you and what do you do?
G'day, Eddie. So I guess, this is, when you first asked me to do this, I was like, that's sort of step me out of my comfort zone. But, I think, I've got some stories to tell. I've had a very good life in this industry, and it's working hard, but as we were talking about before, it's all about the passion. Otherwise, why would you do it? Why would you do those long nights and long days and early mornings and late nights? And, it's all about the passion.
Where did it start for you?
So, I guess I, not knowing, but I was always interested in food. I remember that when at school, when I was at school, we used to do those, you fundraiser, you buy the book. Yeah. You tick the box, and I love that. You get.
Was it home economics?
No, it was it was cooking? like a fundraiser thing at school, and you get the paper, and there's like 50 books on there, and you tick which one you want. The first book I ever chose was a cookbook, and I didn't think about it at the time, but I bought that cookbook, got the cookbook home, and made things. And, from then, I'd always been interested. We'd get home. I had two brothers at the time, and I got home from school, and I'd always be turning the grill on and putting the cheese on toast under the grill and, finding things to put on that cheese on toast. And it sort of went from there, I guess.
And where did it turn into cooking for a living? Where did it turn into your first paid gig as a chef or as a cook?
So I did a lot of work. I worked actually in a fish and chip shop when I was like 13. So my first ever job, it wasn't a family paid job. It was I was a paper boy. So one Sunday morning the paper boy didn't come around our house and do the whistle, and my dad's like, right, let's go. We'll go down to the news agency and find out where the paper boy is. And we went down. Can't find anybody to do that run. And so my dad said, "Well, this is my son. He'll do the run." And so from then on, I think. So I was doing a paper run, and then you know, the first few weeks, I realized very soon that I had to get there quite early, because if you didn't get there, the first carts, the other ones, the wheels didn't work, or the one had no rubber around the wheel. And so you had to get there early to get the good cart. Otherwise, you'd be dragging this thing around for hours, and it'd be difficult. But that led to a day-to-day, Monday to Friday paper run. So I used to leave school at 3 minutes past 5, get down to the paper shop at Minto Station, get my papers in my crate at the front of my bike, and I had to ride up the train tracks up to Otis elevators, and I had to be there by 3:15. Otherwise, I'd miss it. I'd miss 30 people, and so that was, I'd probably sold about 50 to 60 papers a day,
Mm-hmm.
and so if I missed that group, half my run would be gone. So
That's right.
I'd lose a lot of money. But then from then, one of the other places that I delivered to was a fish and chip shop. And there was a Greek guy, George, who owned it. And then one day he said to me, how much do they pay you on the paper run? And I told him, and he said, what about if I pay you $5 more and you come work for me? And I said, how about I do both? And so I did the paper run.
Entrepreneur.
And then I would finish there at sort of 4:30, and then I'd go and cut chips with the chip cutter.
Chip cutter.
And stock the fridges and rotate the milk. So then I sort of learned a lot about, a bit of prepping and the importance, and, making sure that you've done the job correctly. Otherwise, because, there was one occasion that I didn't put the plug in properly, and I had a full sink of chips for the guys for the next morning, and the water had gone down the sink,
right.
and the whole sink full of potatoes that I'd just cut in the morning were useless. So we had to throw them out. So I soon learned because, he sort of let me know that day.
That's it. So you've ventured into food now.
So, yes.
And then what happened next? When did it start becoming serious for you?
So then it was, I sort of got to halfway through year 10 at school, and my dad said, what are you going to do? You want to go on, or you want to get a trade, or what do you want to do? Because back then there wasn't all these new jobs, no marketing, none. It was like you're either a plumber, carpenter, electrician, a chef was like a random thing, and a few other jobs, and that was all the jobs that were around. And we tried plumber, electrician. I couldn't get one at the time, and so we joined a program that sort of found you an apprenticeship. So my first year of my apprenticeship was at the Black Stump. And
they were a group of restaurants.
Yeah, they were a group of restaurants.
Steak restaurants, weren't they?
Yeah, a steak restaurant, yeah. And so they were big out west where I grew up. It was like, that was probably, one of the better restaurants 30 years ago, the Black Stump.
Yeah.
And the things that I learned there, I was cleaning the whole kitchen before I went home by myself. I was standing up on, the grills were so big, for like 200 steaks in a night. The grills were massive, and you had to get up to the hood straight away because, it would be easier to clean while it's warm.
Yes.
But the grill would still be hot. So my shoes were, they had the soles were the grill marks were my soles.
Occupational health and safety, hey?
Yeah, those were the things with the caustic soda. There was caustic soda everywhere. There was, it was a hard, rough time. And at the Black Stump, I used to do split shifts.
Yes.
And it was in Liverpool, and I lived in Minto, so that was just sort of 25-minute drive. And so I'd start at 9:30 in the morning, and then I'd go till 3 after 2:33, and then I'd have a break for 2.5 hours, get back at 5, and finish at 10 at night. So I instantly, when I started work, I instantly cut off from all my friends.
Yeah.
And, they were going out every weekend, and I'm like, I got to work.
A long time ago, that was quite normal to have split shifts, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not anymore those days.
But you can't do that anymore. The split shifts, it was such a pain in the ass.
How was training back then? You were working in Black Stump. You were very young, still at school.
Yeah, training. The Black Stump, they were pretty good. They were, there was the kitchen team there were like very good. Like there was a prep hand lady there. I can't remember her name. Hazel, I think. She was like, motherly sort of took her time to show us through everything done. But
Was she a bit of a mentor for you then?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Not knowing that she was, but she was. Yeah. And then the head chef that ran the grill, he was very good at his job too.
Yeah.
And
so you picked up some skills, I guess, from there then, right?
Yeah.
And what journey did that take you on from there?
So then that was my first year. My second year of my apprenticeship, I was at Beppy's.
Oh, Beppy Pelosi.
Beppy Pelosi. Me and Beppy were good mates in the time. So I worked there. Like working at Beppy's was an eye opener. Everyone in the kitchen spoke Italian.
Yeah.
All the dockets were written in Italian, and all the prep was done. Everyone was talking Italian, shouting out in the kitchen. So, I have fond memories of that place, but it was. I wish I stayed there longer actually, because.
How long were you there for?
It's like 6 months.
Oh, really?
And I thought I always think the grass is greener.
Absolutely.
Always think the grass is greener.
But in that 6 months?
In the 6 months, I learned a lot. We used to do our own anchovies, make them from, lie out the little
fish,
white bait or the
white baits,
sardines, and then sardine salt. And then out the back, when tomatoes were, selling for $3 a box, Beppy would buy the truckload and dump them in the loading dock. And then my job was to take them, cut them into quarters, put them in the dryers out in the prep room out the back, with the rats, where the rats lived. And, the back of that restaurant, you've never seen anything like it. And I'll tell you, it's probably still the same. And where we used to sit. So the building, from the outside, the building looks like a big square building. And, but actually in the middle of the building, it's vacant, it's hollow. You can see the sky if you look up. And so our staff table was in the middle of the area with an awning over so when it rained, we wouldn't get too wet. But I remember staff meal was because I was too scared to eat while I was working there, because, someone clip you around the ear. You'd always look forward to staff meal. So staff meal was always something random, like things that I hadn't eaten before, like soft polenta and ossobuco and
beautiful dishes.
I remember one of the dishes that I loved the most was soft polenta, and I thought it was beans, like these like little beans. And it wasn't until I'd been there for about 3 months. Okay, what are these things? And they were chicken hearts. So I'd been eating them as thinking they were beans, and I used to eat them at least once a week. And at first I thought they were beans, and then I found out they were I was eating stewed chicken hearts, but it was so good. It was so good. So I guess those sort of those sort of meals are poverty. Come from poverty, and
that's right.
But they were like they're probably some of the best meal. Better than the food that's going out of the customer. Like we eat better because we try different things. And
it's strange what you said earlier, that you thought that the grass was greener on the other side, and so you left Beppy's.
Yeah.
On what journey again did that take you to?
Yeah. So
was it greener?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. But
greener because of money, or greener because
I was never money. Like I was never on any money. I just, I don't know what, couple of $100. I think my first paycheck was like $140. I might have done 60 hours a week. Like it was never money. Like I didn't ever chase money. Now I try. I might be different.
Don't make as much as I can.
Yeah,
this big city.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, then I had group of mates that used to work at the Golden Gate Hotel in Ultimo.
Ultimo. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called now, but it's
It's changed.
It's sort of near Chinatown. It's a nice, big, nice hotel, and it changed hands a few times. And they used to have a Chinese restaurant at the base of that was outsourced for a different company. So I was in the kitchen. There might have been 20 chefs, so it was a bit of a brigade.
Yeah,
and I haven't had that experience before in a brigade. I'd sort of worked in smaller environments. And there might have been 20 chefs. There was a Chinese pastry chef who was bloody very good that used to disappear every Thursday, and then it wasn't until years later when I went to Yum Cha on a Thursday, I saw him there. I'm like, so that's where you used to go every Thursday. I used to nick off and go to Yum Cha and then come back. But so I worked with a group of mates because we used to go to the gym and eat. And
that's right.
And then, but the amount of food that we used to consume on shift was absolutely ridiculous. We used to just
look after yourself.
We used to eat like kings.
And what was the learning from working there that you picked up?
One of the things I did that I was sort of proud of myself for there, the salon culinaire. I don't know if they do that anymore. Do they? Maybe
different. They still do a lot of chef competitions, young apprentices, and chefs that expand themselves in their culinary abilities. But salon culinaire, yes, it was a little different. Yeah. So you was in the salon.
So I entered into that, my first ever thing, because the executive chef, Wichai, was very. He was all about sort of promoting the young guys and getting them involved, and he was very, very, very good.
That's great.
And he asked all the guys in the kitchen, he wanted someone to go in this competition. They all said no. And I said, oh, I'll do it. I had no idea what it was or what I had to do and then in the end, I did this dish that it was like a random duck dish, and I left the wing tip on and it sort of looked kind of cool. Then you had to glaze it with aspic and, I got a bronze medal, so that was on my CV for many years.
And is that one of the dishes that shaped you, do you think?
No way, no.
I know, too early in the piece, right? Too early.
No, I don't know, shaped me. I don't know, that sort of, that whole experience of working at the hotel was great. It was like a brigade. There's so many chefs. There was saucier, there was a veg chefs.
Yes.
And I'd never worked in at such a big establishment like that before, and I opened my eyes to a lot. But then, I guess halfway through my journey there, I had a sort of a life-changing moment that affects me to this day.
Interesting.
So, So I got a week off to go to Schoolies Week with my mates who I was who were sort of a year below me at school, because I went 2 years in a row with my mates that are older than me. I went my year, and then my mates that are younger than me. And so we arrived in Surfers Paradise, and we were staying at a friend's apartment, at an apartment up there. And we had our first day, first night out, and talking about it. And then I got a phone call when I was at the hotel or place that I was staying, and my father had passed away.
Really?
So that was like the start of something new. Though, like that was like I didn't know anybody that had died. Like I was 19, had no, didn't know anyone that died. Never been to a funeral. Didn't know anyone. So it was, and then. Hearing that my father had committed suicide was pretty tough. Like it was
19 years old.
I was 19 years old, and I heard that my father had just, you better come home. What do you mean I'm at Schoolies with my mates? I'm just about to go out and get pissed. And it's like, your dad's passed away. Like, what do you mean? All right. So then I had to go to the airport. So a couple of my mates took me to the airport, got on the flight, and then, then sort of dealt with the stuff at home. and then got back to work.
Really?
That's it. No counselling, no nothing. Just go back to work.
And did you think that burying yourself into work or taking your mind
off
off
it? Yeah, that was the only way to deal with it. Like
that's the way to deal with it.
It was just keep going. You just keep going, keep going, keep going.
And what were you doing for work? Were you at the hotel then?
I was at the hotel then, so I went back into the kitchen in the hotel.
And what was the support like in?
No support. I had a couple of mates in there that they're still mates. Or one of them is still mates to this day. Yeah, he's always been around. He's always been there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anyone else knew.
Yeah.
I don't know if I just went back to work.
I guess people wouldn't know how to approach you either.
No, that's right.
What do you say?
It's just, and they just say, he's all right. He's all right. He'll be all right.
Yeah.
And it was a tough moment. He was 49.
Yeah.
So that was why recently turning 50 was such a big thing for me, because my father had passed away when he was 49 through suicide.
Yes.
And 6 years ago, my brother did the same thing at 49. So my brother did it on the day, or it was a day or day before that my dad did it, and they were both 49.
Right.
So me turning 50, it was a thing like in my family, because my grandfather, he committed suicide. I don't know what age he was, and I didn't know this. I just didn't have a grandfather. I didn't know why, where he was. I don't know. Didn't ask any questions. It wasn't until my dad committed suicide that I found out that my dad found his dad.
Oh.
And he committed suicide. And then now my brother committed suicide. And then, I started speaking to a few people about this thing, and it's a thing, like if you know somebody that's committed suicide, it affects you in a way that you think of that as an option to make things easier.
Yes.
As suicide. Because if you didn't have somebody that did that, you wouldn't think of that as an idea. I'm on the top myself. No one's going to think of that. But yeah, so my dad, my grandfather, my dad, and my brother all committed suicide. My dad and my brother, 49 they were. Okay, I'm 50.
Yeah, wow.
I can't imagine me not being around and like, it's just a crazy.
So Jack, your journey has taken you far and wide. I know this, and I'm sure you'll explain soon, because you've worked in all various parts of the world where you've been alone in different parts of the world as a chef. You've held some pretty high positions, and obviously you've gone through quite a bit of training. And now it's up to you now to train others.
Right. Yep.
And sometimes you've been on your own. So some of those places you went to are quite interesting.
Yeah. So when I was about 25 possibly, it sort of got in. Didn't know whether or not what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to be a chef anymore. It's like my dad was a big driver of me being a chef, because his father was a chef.
Gotcha.
And his brother, my uncle, is a chef.
Yes.
And my grandfather, apparently, I'd only found out these stories after my dad died, was one of the chefs for the Melbourne Olympics. But they brought him out from London to Melbourne for the Olympics. Wow. So he was one of the chefs for the Olympics.
Quite senior.
He brought out the family, and then they stayed in Sydney, in Melbourne for a little while, and then they went back to the UK, and then my dad came out later on after his dad had passed. Traveling has been a massive part of me keeping it, staying in this industry, traveling and the passion, right?
Yeah.
So when I was about 25, I started doing a bit of work for Qantas as customer service, because my mum was working there, and so she said, I'll get you a job at Qantas, and you can see if you like doing something else. So I was at the check-in counter, you know, one bag tag, go. And then at Qantas, I'd met a guy that used to work for Ansett.
That's one of my old haunts.
Yes. So this gentleman, he said to me, you know, he knew I was a chef and we used to chat, and he said, oh, you know, all the old Ansett management, when they got made redundant, they all went to the Middle East and they all run Gulf Air in Bahrain in the Middle East. I'm like, what's Bahrain? What's Middle East? What's Gulf Air? You know, not knowing anything about the Middle East. And he said, yeah, they've got an in-flight chef program. So there's a chef in first class in the Middle East. And I'm like, how do you get into that? What do you mean? And he said, and then, you know, we sort of got back into work, and, you know, we didn't mention it again, but the following week he came in with a paper clipping of the ripped out. It was all sort of just ripped out. It was the ad said Gulf Air recruiting in-flight chefs in Sydney. And he goes, there you go. And I was like, no, that's
Great.
And it was an open interview. So you just walked in at this hotel in the city, and they just sort of did a face-to-face interview. Yep, what have you done? Yep, I've worked at Qantas. Yep, I'm a chef. Yep, mate, you got the job. And so literally it was like I sat through, you know, an hour of chat, and this is Bahrain and this is this. And then they sort of, you know, tell us about yourself. You got 30 seconds. And he got to me and he said, you're exactly what we're looking for.
You were on a panel interview with candidates,
there was Anders Schultz, you know, Mike Kent,
I know.
And there might have been a couple of other crew or something there that come out with them. And Anders said to me, "You're exactly what we're looking for," and I'm like, "Sweet." And then it sort of, then I didn't hear for a couple of weeks. I was like, "Oh, okay, what happened?" Did I write my name down properly? Hopefully, or did I put my address? Because then it was, you know, no mobile phones. It was pre-mobile, maybe pre-mobile phones, probably pre. You know, a couple of weeks later, I was doing some painting in an investment property that I had in Mortdale, and I was painting the wall, and I got a phone. Oh, there was phones because my mum rang me, and I'm like, hello, and she said, "Oh, your letter's here, and it's got some Arabic writing on there." I said, open it up. And she opened it. I said, "Oh, what does it say?" There's a commencement date. It's like in a month's time. I go, "Oh, sweet. How much are they paying?" Just out of interest. I was like, "Oh, okay." And so she told me it was whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I put the paints down, ran up to the bank in the main street of Mortdale, and said, "How much is this in Australian dollars, is Bahraini dinar?" And it was $1,600 a week in the hand, tax-free. I was 25. So I think, you know, then I sort of wrapped up my life and in Sydney, which wasn't much, and got on the plane and went to the Middle East. And there was 11 guys, one girl in our group.
Yes.
Most of them from Sydney, or sort of Sydney, a couple in Melbourne. One from Perth. And, you know, I got to the airport. I didn't know if I was the only one. And I'm sort of looking around. I'm thinking, these guys look like chefs. And so I walked up. I said, "Are you a chef?" Yeah, I'm going to Gulf Air. Sweet. And then by the time, you know, we were sort of all milling around and talking, and we realised that there was sort of 6 of us that were on the same crew. So, and I knew one of them I'd sort of worked alongside one of them for a little while. And I'm like, "Oh, sweet." So we went over to the Middle East, not knowing anything, never had anything to do with the Middle East before, and not, you know, just sort of had a ticket sent to me.
That's right.
Paper ticket. Then landing in Bahrain, I remember looking out the window and I thought, this is a tropical paradise. It was white sand and clear turquoise water.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then we landed and we got picked up in a bus, an old bit rickety old bus.
And as a chef, you weren't used to this, right?
No. And then we were taken to our temporary accommodation, and that was pretty rough, but it would have been like 45 degrees. So it was bloody hot.
So you're there. So tell me about the job.
And
you did.
So the job was, so the first, I guess, so we had the full training to be a steward, like a air host.
Safety.
Air host, yeah, safety.
All those sort of things.
So we had to go through that full training, and then we had an extra week or two to learn about kitchen galley and,
everything had a spot in the kitchen.
Yeah,
totally. Aircraft.
Yeah. So, there's a warming cabinet, cabinet, or if you wanted to put things to stay warm. There was a hot cup. There's always only one worked. There was like supposed to be two hot cups, but only one ever worked. So that was boiling water. You could boil eggs and do things like poach eggs for breakfast and things inside that. And then there was 2 ovens, sometimes 3, depending on what aircraft you're on. And they were sort of noisy, blasting ovens. So you could set them to different temperatures. So the way that the meals turned up, so some of the chefs worked on the ground in the catering unit.
That's right.
And they would, design the meals and get them ready to a point that we would receive them in the sky and be able to do chefy stuff to them, but not too much.
That's right.
So the meat was all sealed, but it was all raw inside. So, but then chilled. So that when we got it, depending on how the customer asked for their steak to be cooked, we'd put it in a different oven, and so to sort of feel it, and then that's medium rare, or that's well done, or hopefully never well done, but and then you'd have your veggies in a warming cabinet, you'd have your potato somewhere, and so then you'd sort of so the chef went out to the guest and said, introduce themselves, where they're from, because that would always spark up a conversation. Oh, you're Australian? Oh, wow, what are you doing on this flight? And then you take their order, and then you had an assistant with you, who then you go back and you say, okay, Mr. Smith's having Chardonnay Chablis, and then he's having this for entree, this for main, and then you go, you had 12 people that you had to go do that, but rarely it was full. It was, quite rare to have a full flight of 12 people, because that was, when it was 12 people, that was difficult to do. Yeah. But then you'd say, some different times. So you had to know, you had timing, and you had to, so you had to be on your toes a bit for a couple of hours. For a couple of hours or two, you serve the meal, and then they'd sleep, and then you'd get.
I want to ask you. It sounds like you embedded yourself into that position and you enjoyed it. How long were you there for?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years, and every year I used to say, after the first year I go, I don't know if I could do this much longer, but then the next week I'd been there for 3 years. It was like
that.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
So my job was to fly around the world, serve a couple of people a couple of meals, which I found very easy to do. Yeah. And then you'd get off the plane, and you'd be in London or Paris or Frankfurt or Singapore,
a couple of days or a day and a half,
Bangkok, all over the world. And all I had to do was put a couple of meals on a plate. So
it's great.
It wasn't a challenging job. Probably the challenging part was, the working overnight and then arriving in a different country in the morning. And so you had to think, okay, if I go to sleep now, then I can go for a party in the afternoon, evening, or if I don't, I'll try. So you have to sort of balance. You have to sort of figure out where you were. I was in London. Okay, London, you probably go for a sleep first, because then you go out in the town.
That's right. 5 years of that.
5 years of that.
You get to manage your time quite well after.
Yeah. So now I can. So if I'm ever going anywhere overseas or anything, I can pack a bag and get out. In like 5 minutes.
I want to ask you something. So you spent 5 years now. You've come back to Australia.
Yep.
What next?
So so then I wasn't, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I came home. I had a girlfriend in Bar, an Australian girl, and we came home thinking that, well, let's get back to normality. And then things were very different. It was because I had a flash car. I had all my expenses were paid for. I had lived in an amazing apartment.
So you had to come back to Earth, did you?
I had to come back to Earth, and I come back and it was hard. Yeah. So I was trying to find a job that, how do you compare going from that job to working in a shitty kitchen in Sydney? Like, it was hard. It was like, so then I started working for a company that did work for the bank, and the bank would, when they repossess pubs and things like that, and they would send out a group of people that would make the changes to whatever place didn't work out, when bankrupt or whatever. So so I was in it. There was a group of probably 4 of us: Troy, Jeff, who were 6'6" guys, and me, and there was usually another guy. So Troy would go and look after the office. Jeff would probably do the bottle shop. I'd do the kitchen, and someone else would be doing the rooms upstairs or looking after something else. So you'd knock on the door, guy would open the door, right, give us your keys, you're out. And literally, like, they knew that we were coming.
Yes.
The bank probably told them, for 6 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be some
more pubs or more restaurants, or what were they?
Pub. This is a pub. Yeah. This is a pub.
Restaurants in pubs.
Yeah, this was a restaurant in a pub.
Yeah.
It was in Mudgee.
Yes.
And so it was the one on the creek. Yeah. Can't remember the name. Sir George. No. Anyway. Yeah. So it was a beautiful old pub in Mudgee, and we sort of went in there, got the guy out, and then we'd go into the kitchen. So I walked into where this kitchen should have been, and there was no kitchen, because what had happened is there was a kitchen fire a couple of months back, and so they got a payout of insurance to refit the kitchen. They didn't do the job.
Okay.
So the kitchen was bare. It had been waterproofed, and it was blue, and it was a space with just a blue room.
And what were you meant to do there?
Well, so what they were doing was they had a caravan out in the car park, and they were running the meals from the car park in there. So my first job was, we weren't ready to open, obviously, because we didn't have a kitchen. So I had to, within 4 weeks, I had to mobilize a kitchen. So find a kitchen company in the area that could refit the kitchen in 4 weeks. Challenging, right? So I had to get them in. I had to find out who had done the drawings for the original kitchen, but they hadn't been paid. So can't use you because that didn't work out. So we got a company from Newcastle area, and so he sort of drove over from Newcastle to Mudgee and had the plans. He said, I can get this done, but I can't have this bit of equipment. You can't have this yet. This will come in 2 months. This will come. Yeah, no worries. Do what you can. And so I had to write a menu for the kitchen that was going to be there in a couple of weeks, and then go to the suppliers who, if they were previous suppliers, didn't want to deal with us again because they'd been ripped off and they were owed money. So we had to find other suppliers, sign them up. Then we had to interview, find chefs in the area, which was another very difficult task to do, challenge. And so, but we did it all. And I wrote the menu, got the kitchen together, found the suppliers, got the chefs in, did some training, standard recipe cards, trained everybody, and then left, and then went to the next one. And so I did that it was hard because I'd just come back from the Middle East and I couldn't get a job in Sydney. And so I had this cool job that I hung out with these cool dudes.
That's right.
For a couple of weeks at a time. We'd, drink at night and eat at the pub and eat good food and have a laugh. And then I'd go back to Sydney until I got the call up again.
Yeah.
Oh, we got another one up the Central Coast.
Yeah.
And so I did the same thing at the Central Coast. They'd put me in the kitchen. I'd write the menus. Find suppliers.
Problem solving.
Yeah. So that was great. But then where that ended was I could see there being a need for me in that business because I was like, not many people could do that.
No.
In 4 weeks, turn a kitchen around from doing nothing to open and serving a couple hundred people.
That's right.
So I asked the owner of the business, I want a piece of the pie. Like I want to be a bit of a partner, percentage.
Yeah.
And he said, no, mate, no way. And I said, well, I can't continue this. I'll have to find something else. So, through that, I started doing a little bit on my own for a couple of I did a bit for the Australian Stockman's Hall of Fame. So in Longreach, there's a massive Stockman museum, and it's across the road from the airport. And they wanted to build a steakhouse, and so they sort of engaged us or me and said, "Oh, can you come up and open a steakhouse for us?" They were going to call it the Cattleman's Bar and Grill. And so I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a bit of fun. Yeah, how many weeks are you going to need me up there?" So I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and they said, "Oh, 4 weeks. Come up 4 weeks. You'll be back in Sydney." I said, "Yeah, okay, I can do that."
Sounds like longer than a 4-week job to me.
Yeah. No, I got up there, and I said, "Where's the restaurant?" And they were like, "Well, that's where it's going to be." I go, "What do you mean going to be? I thought it was built." And they said, "No, that's the cement slab." So I was there to open the restaurant, but there was no restaurant. It was a cement slab. So, and they were like, "Oh, we've got other work you can do around, and tell us where you want things, and we'll get it built." And so I ended up. So I think I stayed there for like 3 months, and in that time, my relationship just disintegrated, and unfortunately, it all sort of that part of my life sort of ended, and I stayed up there, and through the Australian Stockman's Hall of Fame, which was heavily funded by Packer, Murdoch, and so I was being introduced to very influential people,
prominent.
So I was, they wanted the best meat in Australia that you could get, and then it was like, oh, well, how do I get hold of these people? Oh, well, they're all members. They all donate to the Australian Stockman's Hall of Fame. It was the Teas, all the big Aussie brands of beef.
Yes.
I was given the direct number to the owner, and all I did was ring them and told them what I was doing. I'm setting up the restaurant at the Australian Stockman's Hall of Fame. I want to use your meat. Can you send me some samples and let me know how I get your product into Longreach? And, like the next day or 2 days later, boxes of beef was turning up, like the best, ribeye on the bone. The bones are like this long. Like I was getting thousands of dollars worth of meat turning up every day.
And did you create any signature?
Everything was
dishes for yourself. I mean, that you could put your name to.
Yeah, well, the one thing I did, because it was, I wanted to do a unique potato, right? So a steak, and you get your potato and a couple of veggies, right? It was basically a steakhouse with a mushroom sauce or whatever. So I was like, what can I do differently that's a little bit different? So I made a Stockman's smash. So I got the old chat potatoes, steamed them in the oven, and then waited till they put them in the coorum, so a coorum full of steamed chat potatoes. And then what I used to do is smash them in the ones, and then put a pot of cream on with caramelized onion that I'd do, and a salt and pepper in there, and I'd pour it over the top. So smashed chats with cream and onions and potato and salt and pepper in the oven, and it just used to come out like a potato bake, but a Stockman's version. So that was the signature. So every steak got a scoop of the Stockman's smash,
Yes.
and it had become a thing. Like everyone was coming for these beautiful steaks, but then everyone was saying, "Oh, what's this smash? What's this chunky?" And it was just a basic chat potatoes that had been crushed up with cream and onions. It was fantastic.
I've got to move on to your next gig after that. So you've done that for a few months now, and you're going to move on, because I know you've done an awful lot of things, and so somehow you've landed yourself into the fast food industry.
Oh yes,
into the QSR world.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? And
so
what did you do there?
I have a good friend that was the head of recruitment for Guzman and Gomez, and David Young. And David, we were always good mates, and I met him when I was a head chef at the Star, when the Star first opened. He was one of the young guns at the Star, and we got along really well. And he was in recruitment, I was a chef, but we'd always see each other in passing. "G'day, mate, how are you?" And we'd always kept in contact. Once a year, twice a year, we'd send a text, "How you going? What are you doing?" Or there'll be a comment on Facebook on a picture that someone's posted. And out of the blue, it come at an amazing time, because this was years later, and I was in the shit, and for some reason I had been working somewhere that I was very unhappy. I can't remember what job it was. And I was out of work for a couple of weeks, and then I got this phone call, David Young. I'm like, "Oh, Dave Young. How you going, Dave?" He goes, "Jack, I've got the perfect role for you. Come and meet the founder of Guzman and Gomez." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, he's telling me about it. He's telling me, I just pitched this idea. We're in a meeting. They wanted somebody in there to look into all the operational requirements, everything in the kitchen, everything. Are we doing everything right? Is there a better way of doing things? Have we got the right piece of equipment for the right job? And I was like, this is my job. This is perfect. So David organised the meeting with Stephen Marks, and I went into the head office, and their offices are amazing. Like, you've never seen anything like it. Right, fully decked out and spray painted on the wall, and like New York style offices, no expense bed. And I met Stephen Marks, and he spent a lot of time explaining himself and what he'd done, and how the concept came out and what it is, and his passion. And I'm like, I got to work for this guy. This guy's amazing. And he took me into the restaurants, and he showed me, these chips. This is why we use these chips. These corn chips are like this for this reason. We get our beef is Aussie beef. It's half Aussie, half Kiwi. The reason why we did that is this reason.
Passionate, right?
Very, very passionate, and knew everything about everything and everyone. And amazing, and very generous with his time for someone that's runs $1 billion company. Very generous with his time. And so I went and had a first meeting, and then he invited me back for a second meeting, and it was a bit more intense. And we got along well. We were just chatting and having a chat, and I thought, this guy's amazing. And then I started working there, and I guess where things sort of come undone for me was...
What's your role, by the way?
I was the director of culinary operations.
For Guzman y Gomez.
For Guzman and Gomez. Massive money.
And before you go on further with that, all the learnings that you'd had, all the things that you'd done, go back to Pepe's and go back to working in Bullering. Could you put that all together and piece 100%. It into this role?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's
100%. So, working in a small environment on an aircraft, it was like, there was a galley in the back of these Guzman and Gomez restaurants. So there was a servery.
That's right.
It was slightly bigger than an aircraft, but it was basically the same thing.
And what did you have to do?
At the Guzman and Gomez? So I think where I came unstuck was, I think what I thought my job was, and what Steve Marks thought my job was, what he wanted me to do, I think there was a bit of a miscommunication, that I'm misunderstanding.
Yes.
I misunderstood. So I think he wanted me to create new things and new ideas and new menu items and things like that. I thought I was making sure that operationally everyone was doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Operationally, we're using the right equipment for everything.
Yes.
You know, one of the first things that my job was to sign off on the chicken tenders at GYG. If you haven't tried the chicken tenders at GYG, mate, I'm sure you have. They're the best, mate. They're hands down the GYG tenders. Louisa Gomez, she's amazing. She came up with a recipe for these. They're the best on the market. Like, hands down the best. But there was a couple of issues when in the manufacturing of these tenders.
Best not give any secrets away. Steve might be listening to this.
Oh yeah, no, he knows. So the one thing that I wasn't happy with is we're getting a lot of tenders that weren't sort of straight.
Yeah.
They were all sort of a lot folded over, and I'm like,
because the tendon and the chicken, it bends it through. Sometimes.
Well, so the bag, you know, when you get the bag, there was always about 30% of wastage, and it wasn't wastage because it was shit. It was wastage because they turned over like that. You can't serve that.
Yeah.
And so what the idea we introduced in production is a freezer table, and so as the conveyor goes down, it dropped onto a sort of a freezer. It didn't freeze the meat, but it sort of kept it straight, so it didn't fold over. So when it moved on to the next level, it just sort of stayed flat. But then my challenging thing was where I sort of wasn't 100% sure was you can't crumb a piece of frozen meat. So I was worried that the coating wouldn't stick because the chicken tender was frozen.
Well, that's right.
And so I just needed more time to sort of prove that or to disprove it so that we could just move on. And you know, I think, you know, everyone wanted to sign off. Everyone wanted to get him out. Get him out, just get him out. And then one of the other challenges that I had was they had bought these hot holding units like a McDonald's style for the burger slide, the patty slide. And I was like, but the patty slide is designed to hold the patties in steam heat.
I understand.
But Stephen Mark said, I want the chicken tenders to be crispy. And I said, you got the wrong piece of equipment, because that'll hold it in steam and it will steam the tenders.
Send it soft again.
So you can't use it. I said, why are we even introducing these very expensive pieces of equipment when you could just put them in the line? And at the time, they were talking about the mushroom. They had the mushroom, and it wasn't very popular in a lot of stores. Some restaurants it was. And so it's, for me, I'd say get rid of the mushroom and put the chicken tenders on the line. And so that sort of it was too late because somebody had made the decision to buy these millions of dollars worth of steamers.
That's right.
And it was too late.
Oh, jeez.
So so then after that, then I moved on. Then I was asked to go to the US.
Yes.
And so that was, I was
challenge.
Like, okay, no, I'll go to the US. That'll be awesome. Imagine going to Chicago, getting sent to Chicago. Yeah. So here I was. The next couple of nights later, you're going to Chicago. Yeah. You're going to help open a new restaurant. You meet the team over there, see what you think of the new.
So you lived over there for a while?
So no, I was only like 2 weeks. Yeah, only there for a little while. But we opened up, I think, one restaurant and sort of got some. Another restaurant, and that was amazing.
We're going to have you back because you've got so many stories to tell. Yeah. You've got a lot to talk about. I want to race you on to a couple of things, right? So I'll have to pass you through Guzman Y Gomez onto your next role. But by this time, you've come across a lot of youngsters, apprentices, I guess, young chefs that are going through this industry. Yep. What are the sort of things that you would advise a young chef entering the industry, looking at what you've done, and guide them through their journey? What are the sort of aims that you would put to some of those youngsters?
So the first thing I'd say, unless you want to be the best, don't do it. Don't do it, because there's so many mediocre chefs out there that you won't stand out, you won't get paid well. If you're not going to be the best and want to go...
So challenge yourself.
If you want to challenge yourself, you want to work hard, if you're not going to do that, don't do it, because it's not an easy job.
No. Long hours.
Long hours, shit money when you're young. You work with a lot of dickheads.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, no. And like, you won't last. If you don't want to be the best, you don't want to do it. Don't do it.
And as today's world has changed a little bit now from when you started. The world of AI, what do you think about AI now in industry?
I love it. I think it's, I've just scratched the surface with it.
Yeah.
I think
everybody has, right?
Yeah. But I think where it can help chefs at my level, like off the cuff, when you get requests for off the cuff menus, you just put the request in a chat GBT and it'll give you a full menu. You just send the menu on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done.
It's done.
But that's like step one, of a million steps in AI. Another one is menu engineering, which if you're putting your data into AI or your sales and stuff, you're going to get some amazing, easy replies on what's a seller, what's not selling.
That's right.
I just think AI can do so much and make my life a lot easier.
Rapid fire questions for you.
Just go.
Quick couple.
Yeah.
Taste or presentation?
Oh, fuck. Oh, they're both important.
Very important.
They're both
in their own ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you'll hover on both.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm not taking sides in that one.
Favorite dish? Do you have one? Or if you don't have a favorite dish, all right, I'd love you to invite me over for a bite to eat. What would you make for me?
Oh, mate. I'll tell you one of my favorite dishes, which I had for the first time a couple of years back. Actually, my mum makes. My mum's Dutch.
Yes.
Half Dutch. And she makes this Dutch almond and ginger slice with glacé ginger. Mate, it's like next level. Every time I see her, I say, you got to make me one of those. She's like, oh, you can't get glacé ginger anymore. So they don't get it at the shop. But that's just her excuse. But probably my wife's nonna.
Yeah.
She used to, when I first met my wife and I'd go over my wife's nonna's place.
Yes.
The table would be full and she would love the fact that I'm a chef and I would love whatever she's doing and appreciate it.
Yes.
And she used to make this spaghetti with zucchini and garlic and olive oil, and that's it.
That's it.
And it's like, if you've never tried it before, it's got zucchini, garlic, salt in there, and olive oil, spaghetti, tossed spaghetti. It's amazing.
Well done.
That is probably, it's a go-to and it's easy to do.
You know what, Jack? I think we're going to have you back, because I don't really want to end it here, because I feel you've got a lot more to say. But your passion to profession, your challenges, some of the things that you've been through in life have been really quite opening.
Yeah,
and great to listen to, great to hear. And so, unfortunately, we're going to have to end it now, only because I ran out of time, not out of you. I could listen to you forever. Yeah. But I really appreciate everything that you've been able to explain to us and the things you've spoken about. Yeah. You really have been through quite a bit, and it's been great to listen to. I'm pleased that you're able to explain yourself the way that you have. Yeah. And I can't wait to have you back for, I think, is going to be part two of the rest of your journey.
Yeah, done. And back.
What a great passion to profession that you've had.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.